freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 222, right? 222 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is the militia and the Constitution, and our guest is Randy Miller. Randy is a candidate for the Arizona House of Representatives in LD 21 and the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association Director in Arizona. And he teaches both the Arizona and U.S. Constitution, and I just can't believe that. It's nice to meet somebody that actually not only knows the Constitution, but teaches it. Thank you, Randy.
Yes, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you probably recognize this huge, massive document in my hand. When I hold it sideways, you can see it. The Constitution is not War and Peace. It's not a 100-volume read that takes you, a lot of time to get through. It's about an hour long if you read this cover to cover. It's like 49 pages, this pocket Constitution. And it is shocking to me how many people have never committed the time to read it. And a lot of them are sitting in elected offices right now as we speak. It makes me crazy.
You are so right. I've witnessed this in my years as being a PC and working with legislators, trying to get them to understand the decisions they've made, how they've been contradictory to Constitution and the rights of the people, both federal and state.
So Randy, what does shall not be infringed mean? Because you teach that.
It's a mysterious statement, clearly.
Well, the Second Amendment is interesting. If you look at the whole thing, if we can analyze it, and then we'll go to the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8, that defines the militia and their duties. But if you look at the Second Amendment, it came several years after the Constitution did, as a condition of ratifying the Constitution. But the Second Amendment it says a well-regulated militia, regulated meaning trained.
Thank you.
Not controlled by government, but regulated. Regulation is a military term for training. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary. Now, this is interesting because nowhere else in your little 64-page pamphlet of the Constitution is the word necessary in there.
Interesting.
You won't see
I didn't realize that.
else. Necessary it doesn't say that Congress is necessary. It doesn't say the executive branch is necessary. And it doesn't say Article 3, the judiciary is necessary. But it does say a militia is necessary. Not just a militia, but a well-trained militia. That is the people.
Wow.
And it says being necessary to maintain a free state, which is very clear as well. So the founders were very clear in what the intent of the militia is, that they have to be trained. It's necessary to maintain a free state from tyranny. And it says, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall under law is mandatory. It's non-permissive. If you're looking at certain laws and it gives some liberties to the judge or the prosecuting attorney, it'll say may, which means they can do some other things. But shall is non-permissive. It is a mandatory requirement that has to be followed.
That is awesome. And it took you how long? Maybe 3 minutes to explain that. And here we are in this never-ending debate about it that started up, what was it, about in the 70s when it really ramped up and started becoming such a political football between the left and the right, the Democrats and the Republicans. And here you've explained it in 3 minutes.
Well, remember when you opened your show, you held it up and you said that people don't read it. And it's written in simple terms to avoid
Bingo.
confusion.
The shame of it is, Randy, that we have politicians that don't even know what it means, that don't read the Constitution, yet they have to swear on an oath for the Constitution.
Well, we've lost, under Article 6, paragraph 3, that talks about, the oath of office. And we've lost the meaning. The oath has become more of a perfunctory action as a symbol to take office rather than the why they take office. So that we become a society where left versus right is a debate of ideologies rather than following the Constitution.
So
you have to recognize, I mean, even during, after the first Congress was formed, that they had the Republican Democracy Party. So they had parties all along, but they've been focused on the Constitution. And we've lost that. We don't focus on anymore. We focus on ideologies. Well, what do they want to do? What do they want to get by in legislation? And compromise becomes the jargon that they use. Compromise and reaching across the aisle. The only reaching across the aisle is to shake hands on an agreement that the Constitution's been upheld in their legislation. That's all they should be reaching across for.
Absolutely.
Well, Randy, we're in the middle of a fresh spike in cases of the COVID in Arizona, and we have a statewide mandate now to wear the mask and in public, and it's 110 degrees outside. It's kind of hard to wear a mask, and there's people that can't wear a mask because they may have asthma, things like that. What are the constitutional implications of the current crisis and the mandate?
Well, that's interesting. First of all, we have to look at what government is. And if you look at Arizona's Constitution, Article 2, Section 2 is very clear. It defines government and the powers of government. And it says three things. Number one, it says all political power is inherent in the people. Political power is the power to make laws. That comes from us. And this, again, is what people are losing in translation in all this. We've been giving up our rights to a powerful individual or group of individuals rather than recognizing that we have the power. This is how the country's designed. So all political power is inherent in the people. And then it also says that government derives its just powers, those powers that are justified to execute the political power that we gave them or loaned them to do on our behalf. And that's it. And the purpose of government, just powers by the consent of the governed. The purpose of government is to protect and preserve individual rights, not societal rights, individual rights. So when we look at this COVID-19, we have to look at, the Arizona state government is, all state governments, we're a mini republic, just like the country is. We're broken down into 30 districts. And each district has representation that they vote locally to represent them on state issues down at the Capitol. Now, the representation that we have is we vote on legislators, which is covered under Article 4 of the state constitution, and it grants all legislative power shall be vested in the House and the Senate. Legislative power is to make laws. The executive power comes under Article 5. And the Article 5, he's the executive, which means he has the control and power over executive branches under his jurisdiction. In Arizona, we also have the treasurer, the education department, secretary is under their own distinct executive branch, but the governor has control over the branches that are within his jurisdiction. He can make orders governing the employees of these agencies. to, and the orders that he makes are to do, and this is under Article 5, execute the laws, faithfully execute the laws of the state. So he doesn't write laws. Article 4, the legislator writes laws. Article 5, he's to execute the laws of the state. And he has executive authority over the personnel of those executive agencies that he controls. So he can, because they work for him, he can fire, dictate, you wear a mask, he can dictate policies to them. He has no authority over the citizens of Arizona. So to say, and this is where he's slipped. I have very little faith in our governor, from what I've seen and heard of him on his presentations and everything. And he got in a lot of hot water over his stay home orders, which completely unconstitutional on both state and federal. He got in hot water over several closing businesses. So what he did this time is he said, well, I'll let the cities decide that. The cities have no authority to set policy. And then, like in Phoenix, setting a $250 fine if you don't wear a mask. Well, good luck enforcing that under the Constitution. So, because already, you know, the people have to realize political power is us. We have that. And they only get their just powers from our consent. Did you consent to wearing a mask?
No,
I didn't.
sir.
I didn't
No,
either.
sir.
Just to make it clear so I understand. So the governor cannot make law. He has to follow the law according to what the legislatures enact. And the legislatures have to enact laws that we ask them to enact. But then,
They have to be properly vetted and passed.
so that's one thing. And the other thing is right now, if you don't comply with the mask regulations with the city part of it, they'll pull your retail sales license.
Well, they can't do that either. Because, you know, there's 5 sections in the Arizona Constitution that I've identified that they're violating left and right. First one is what I just told you, Article 2, Section 2, purpose of government and rights of the people. The second one is we have a right to assembly, which is Article 2, Section 5. Let me get my notes here. Right of assembly to petition and air our grievances, as well as to make changes that we want to make. Like open up, you know, protesting when we were down at the Capitol. I've been to every single one of these protests. That's our right to do that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We also have for churches to gather and assemble in our churches. They can't violate that. Then they have the Equal Privileges and Immunities Clause. This is a good one. Privileges and immunities is not only in our state constitution, but it's also in the U.S. Constitution in 2 locations, Article 4 and the 14th Amendment. Privileges and immunities is our right. It covers many things under the U.S. Constitution. One of those is our right to travel freely from one state to another, and our right to conduct business from one state to another and to hold a business. They can't arbitrarily, because we have to have equal protection of privileges, that one law cannot be passed or one decision by a governor that violates equal privileges under the 14th Amendment and the state constitution that doesn't grant the same privileges to equally among us. So when they arbitrarily say that they're going to close a business, you designate what businesses are essential and what aren't. They're violating their right under equal privileges and immunities and under equal protection of the law under the 14th Amendment. They're also violating the 5th Amendment, the last sentence where it says, you shall not be deprived of life, liberty. What's our liberties? Our freedom to leave our homes, our freedoms to conduct business with each other, our freedoms to shake hands, to hug, whatever we choose to do based on the knowledge that we've been given by government as safety or not, or property, which is your business. When the governor said he's going to shut your property or close your business down and fine you or withhold your license, like the city's done, that's a taking. They've now committed a taking of your personal property, because that business is their personal property. And it's their blood, sweat, and tears. You know that with your gun shop. That's their blood, sweat, and tears and their livelihood for their giving to the community, conducting business, and all that property that you've done in there. That's a taking, and that was done with not even in accordance to what the permissions they have. Eminent domain is Section 2, Article 17 of Arizona's Constitution. Fifth Amendment's already been violated, and the Fifth Amendment is covering you if you commit a criminal offense that we've determined through society that these are accepted laws and offenses we want to have enforced. We haven't even committed a criminal offense, and they're already violating our Fifth Amendment rights to due process of life, liberty, and property. But under Arizona's Constitution, under eminent domain, they can only take property for public use. For private property shall not be taken for private use except for private ways of necessity. That's roads like 202, Red Mountain Freeway. They can do that. And for drains, flumes, or ditches, or on or across the lands of others for mining, agricultural, domestic, or sanitary use. So it says no private property shall be taken or damaged for public or private use without just compensation having first been made and going through the court process. So they haven't done anything, and the purpose of the legal purpose for them to take a property is not even met. So it's wrong on all counts.
Absolutely.
Well, Randy, I heard in my own ears where the governor said that there were some bars in Scottsdale that they were going to pull their liquor license if they didn't stop serving liquor during this COVID. And the question is, I mean, how does the small shop, the barber shop down the corner, or the laundromat defend themselves with such a big group? I mean, what are they going to do about it?
That's the problem with government. One more thing, though, let me tell you, the fifth thing is that they cannot do any bills. This is Arizona Constitution. Bills of attainder or ex post facto laws, or any law, implement any law that is an impairment of contracts. You have contracts with your distributors, do you not? You have a contract with your
staff members?
Or staff.
Yes.
You have a contract with your building, if you lease a building. So
we have a contract with the state, the city, that will collect their sales tax that we don't agree to, but we do it because they tell us we have to have a license. Yeah. That's a contract.
Yeah, it
is. So when the governor does his king method, despotic moves on the people, he's violated all 5 of these Arizona Constitution, because now he's trampling your contracts.
Yeah.
And the legislature is the only one that can make law.
Well, I love the city that we're in. We're in Avondale, Arizona, and I absolutely love the city. It's been great to us. The thing that I wish would have been done is that they educate the store owners that, hey, we have a problem here. What can you do to help? But not enforce law. Let everybody do a voluntarily handle this situation, because
we've been given an or else, and I agree with you, Randy, that it is an improper or else. And they might even try to do the or else, which is pull our business license. I think if we took it to court, they would have to lose, we would have to win. But then at what cost is all of that? And so it's just easier to comply. And then it's step by step by step that we give up more and more and more.
Let me make it one clear, though. I'm sorry, I just want to make one thing clear. We have not been approached. We have not been told that if our businesses don't comply, that we'll lose our license.
Well, there's a proclamation out there.
But there is yes, there is. But we have not been personally attacked with this nonsense. But anyway, so go ahead.
We got on a soapbox for a minute there and robbed you of your time.
A proclamation isn't law.
Yeah.
It's not enforceable.
Right.
In my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion, I don't see it being enforceable anyway. But you asked, what can we do? Well, when you talk about the threat of pulling a license and everything, if you don't comply, is that not tyranny?
Yes.
Right. Oh, sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
We've been living under tyrannical government for quite a bit, and I don't have time to get into it all, but under George Bush in 2005, the Republican Party exhibited extreme tyranny on the people with the Patriot Act, with Homeland Security, and we were going to get into that with the militia. We never finished that. So, and the real ID. These are all things that Hitler did prior to his rounding up the Jews. And we have to remember our history. But what we can do is, in Wickenburg, the people have to, nothing will be changing until the people stand up, the patriots. In Wickenburg, the little contractual city, not the city attorney or for the city of Wickenburg, she's not an employee, she's under contract, because the Wickenburg council and mayor wanted to enforce the shutdown that the governor illegally proclaimed in his executive order. Well, Lydia's cantina, or Lydia's restaurant in Wickenburg, and Deb's restaurant, Iron Horse Cafe, and the cafe next to hers, they refused to. They opened up early. They said, "We can't do this. You're killing us. You're destroying our business, and we can't survive, pay our bills, and there's businesses closed already." So they opened early. And they were getting threats, phone calls and things like this, because they're damaging the community, they're harming the community, jeopardizing the community, all this stuff. And so the Patriots, myself and two other people, we went down there to help Deb. We were there 3 days, 7 till 2 in the afternoon, 2:30, depending on when the customers left, to make sure that the customers that came in were not harassed.
That's awesome.
To make sure that city was aware that, we're here to help defend her right to be open. This is what the people have to do. Yesterday, I went to Mesa. I saw a Facebook post of the bar and grill in Mesa. I forgot the name of the place, where she posted a sign, says, "We are not enforcing the mask order of our staff and the people that enter." So we went there to show her support, and what we need to do is get businesses together and say, privately owned businesses, corporations are a different story. I think they're part of the plan, but get small businesses together statewide, build a coalition and say, enough of this. We aren't complying with your unconstitutional executive orders. The people need to stand. Wickenburg had people coming from all over the valley to support these businesses in large numbers. They're not going to enforce this nonsense with these large numbers. And there's an attorney, Anthony Ramirez from Scottsdale, who has supported these businesses. He's even been in contact with this business owner in Mesa, and they've talked. So we have an attorney that is a patriot. He's defending their right to open their business, keep their business open, and that's what we need. But we need the people to come together. And my idea is, let's get patriots to say, we get 100 people and we have like a little field trip. Well, they want masks at Targets or Safeway. Let's all go in there without our mask and protest. Now, we don't want to jeopardize the safety of people that may have COVID. We realize it's a problem, but we also realize that there's some real inflation of the numbers. I have a friend who sent me his information that said what they're doing is they're double counting. If me and my wife go in to the doctor's office or emergency room and we test positive for COVID, but we're not detrimentally sick, and when we go home, they count that as two cases. Even though we're not sick enough to stay. If I return because I get worse, that's another case. So they get 3 cases out of 2 people. And they're not differentiating the seriousness of the cases. Are they just testing positive and they're fine? Well, there's a lot of information out there that contradict what they're doing. So, I don't know, but the point is we don't want to be jeopardizing, but we need to stand up for our rights. And we need to say, we're not sick. We're not going to go out. We're going to exercise our rights. If we're sick, we're going to stay home. But wearing a
Absolutely.
mask is it's a symbol. It's
Yeah.
what it is. It's they're incrementally upping their game for compliance.
Comply.
Social
Absolutely.
pressure. How far will you go to comply with government's unconstitutional directives for your safety that we haven't even been officially proven? The numbers aren't showing it. The numbers are increasing because they're increasing their testing. Of
And
course they're going to go up.
And that's the thing is I get an alert on my phone every morning that one of the big news stations here in the Valley here in Arizona where we're sitting, it's this big number, right? Like another 3,000 COVID cases, right? Nowhere in there is the information that says, um, that no, this isn't 3,000 deathly ill people, right? Because then the next number kind of gives it away and it says, oh, there was maybe, like 12 more hospitalizations today. But 3,000, that's at the top of the screen and that grabs your attention and it gets you feeling all nervous that there's a problem out there. And just having a COVID diagnosis does not mean that you are deathly ill. Maybe you went in because you had an ear infection and they went ahead and tested you for COVID because everybody's testing right now, right? And okay, there's another one of those COVID cases, but you're asymptomatic. As far as I know, I mean, they don't tell us, are they all contagious? We don't even know that. So the numbers are really, they're garbage. They're nothing that we can make solid life decisions on. And yet we are being held to that standard by the governor, by the mayors, and then by this court of public opinion. And that's the one that is so insidious and so difficult to deal with because as a business owner, so we could have people who come in and they say, oh my gosh, you're a gun store owner and you're supposed to be about saving lives, right? That's what you get on the radio and you tell people that you're about self-defense and saving lives. And here you're saying that, okay, there's this mask order, but if you're sick, I mean, like if you have a medical reason not to wear a mask that you don't have to, well, yeah, of course we're going to say that because we don't get into HIPAA. We don't ask you if you have a specific problem with your breathing that this mask can exacerbate. So, but somebody could look at that and go, well, I saw the owner in there. He didn't have a mask on. He's endangering lives. I'm going to get on Yelp and I'm going to tell everybody, right? We could have someone later who I guarantee you there's going to be, when you see on TV, there's these, if you've been injured in an accident or if you've been, injured in some way, join us in this class action lawsuit, right? I guarantee you there's going to be some class action lawsuits out there and people are going to try to claim that they know exactly where and when they contracted COVID and they're going to go after businesses because somebody smells money somewhere. So it's really, it's hard to not comply because the risks go beyond whether or not it's constitutional or not. Does that make sense?
Kinda. I mean, in the court of public opinion, it does, but in reality, proving that is going to be very difficult. How many people go in there? Could they have gotten it off the door handle going into your business? Could they have gotten it off their door of their own car that they had friends coming in and out of? So it's going to be impossible to pinpoint anything of where it comes from. You can go from a restaurant. Good Lord. You go into a restaurant and you take your mask off to eat and they're wearing a mask, but everybody's handling your plate.
Right.
How many people are handing your plate after touching everything and putting it on your table or the silverware when they wrapped it in the napkin or the table or the booth or the bench?
Right. Or even to-go food. It's somebody had to prepare it at some point, So I agree with you 100%. It's just, it's hard because we have, people that we're personal friends with that when you get on Facebook and I mean, they're like really adamant about, if you're not wearing a mask, you're basically, doing the devil's work. And they're not pointing it directly at Dan or I, but they're pointing it at anybody who would question whether or not wearing a mask is a wise personal decision, without taking into account that some people do have breathing difficulties, that the masks are not proven to do one single thing to help. I mean, every time, and I've worn one once in a while, because if I have to go into a business, I'm trying to honor their wishes. If they have it posted to wear a mask, I do. And every time I breathe out, my glasses fog up. And I'm like, yeah, that's really holding in the germs.
Yeah, but they'll argue that, so you have a little inconvenience. I can't wear a mask. I have a medical reason I can't wear one. And I get shamed.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the government to get people to comply. They make you feel like if your next door neighbor doesn't do it, then he's bad. He's evil.
Bad. That's another way to divide us. It
works both ways, because when we were out yesterday in Mesa, we went into the homes at home, and heard that bar, the sports bar, is right across from at home. And we went in there, and there's most people wearing a mask. There's a few that aren't. We acknowledge those that aren't. We say thank you for being the wise one and upholding your rights and not falling for the conformity trap. And we give thumbs up each other, and it's supporting each other under peer pressure in a positive way as well. We have to recognize and acknowledge those in the stores, and we do, that aren't wearing a mask. And we went in Peoria to that home store, and a guy was sitting at one of the outside benches wearing his mask. He sees my wife and I come in, and he pulls his mask off and goes, and he gives us a thumbs up, because not everybody that wears a mask believes in it, but they're falling to the conformity trap. And we can change that attitude by being supportive of those that we see not wearing a mask and recognizing them and saying, thank you for being a constitutional patriot.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more.
And
well, Randy,
yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Well,
Randy, we've been talking about this COVID and all these other things. We could probably talk for like 3 hours on that. And I appreciate all the comments, and you've made me feel stronger about the Constitution and everything. But you're also running for Arizona House of Representatives in LD 21, right?
Yes, I am. I am running because the reality is the people aren't represented. Do you think you're represented in office?
Absolutely not.
We have had maybe 1 or 2 representatives out of 60 step forward and say they don't agree with this. So just for the COVID, the shutdown, everything, every single one of them has been silent. Mm-hmm. I'm not represented. So, and the Republican Party in their 2016 platform says, page 2, I believe it is, we are the party of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and we're here to reaffirm that. I got tired of them reaffirming or not reaffirming it, so I decided it's time for me to run and show them how it's done. Because the Republican Party has been doing just the opposite of reaffirming the Constitution. They're silent on the COVID, and I am a Republican, but I'm a constitutional Republican, and we need to get back to the Constitution because we're in trouble. This is a Marxist communist assault on America. Mm-hmm. I'm a history buff. My wife was born and raised in Russia. She lived under communism. And because of that, I've been studying it for many years now, several years, at least 5 years, the history of communism, the revolution in 1917, and Lenin, and then what we've been involved in Ukraine in 2005 with the Orange Revolution, and in 2013-14, the winter, where we did a coup and got Poroshenko out of the president of Ukraine out of office. It's all, and if you look at how that happens, what do? They distance the people from their political and legal and legal authorities, villainizing them. They tear their statues down, calling their history evil. So they're trying to distance and bring people to submission of a change and new direction because the old ways are wrong. And that's how communism, Marxism worked all along. That's what they're doing here. Mm-hmm. Now it's defund the police. The very basis of our civil society. So I'm running because I've had enough. And it's time that people hear someone who's not afraid to stand up against the political correctness nonsense that's been destroying our country and society for the last 10 years, well, 15 years. President Obama was big at political correctness and dividing the country. The Democrat Party's fantastic at doing it. And we don't have anybody standing up to it. On the Republican side, they're very submissive, and we need to start fighting back, and we need to start doing it with information, and we need to do it boldly and firmly before we lose the country. And and Arizona is a state. We are a sovereign nation. We're a conglomeration of 50 sovereign nations operating under international law, which is the U.S. Constitution. Our Constitution governs us, and not one of our legislators have stood up to usurpation of power over the federal government and upholded our own Constitution and the rights of the people.
Well, I've always said, excuse me, I'm sorry, that I want, politicians to represent the people. And I kind of, what? Why don't we just represent the Constitution? That would do it, wouldn't it? If we just follow the Constitution, wouldn't you not be representing me and the beliefs that the country was built on?
That's
just
way
follow
too
the Constitution.
simple, Dan. That can never work.
It's right here. It's so easy. I'll hold it up for a second. It's so easy. If every politician followed the Constitution, I wouldn't need representation. Just follow the Constitution.
That is your representation. On my signs, I have on there Constitution first.
Right.
Very simple. That should be the first thing that comes to our mind when any sort of legislation is coming forward. And understanding that any taxation law is nothing but legal plunder.
Right.
Stealing from the people, suppressing them.
Well, why do you think that some of these rabble-rousers out there are doing everything they can to undermine the men and women who fought, bled, starved, and died for the privilege to even write our founding documents? Because they're trying to undermine the people themselves, which undermines the document and gives us no foundation. And it can just always be the issue du jour, right? We can just go whichever way the wind blows.
That's called chaos.
Yeah. Kind of
From chaos comes order. And the whole purpose of undermining is because they want to destroy it.
Yes.
We have allowed our education system since the early 1960s, if not late 1950s, to be overrun by the socialist mentality. And in the 70s, we were just one generation away from socialist mentality. So look at all the different generations we've had that have been programmed and turned into a socialist communist mentality, and that's the resonating fact behind the undermining of our Constitution, because it's not what they want.
Right. So true.
Control is what they want.
So we are quickly running out of time, and we are going to have you back on and dig deeper into the militia, because, as you said, we skipped over a big part of what you were going to say about that. But before we let you go, there's another question that is so important, and that is that we mentioned at the beginning of the show that you are running for, and you'll explain what that means, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association director in Arizona. What is this organization? Constitutional Sheriffs? Wait a minute. What do those two things go together? And what is the platform? What is the mission statement of that organization? I'm making light, and it might not be translating well, but I think the work they do is amazing. And it does take sheriffs who are an elected official, right? They are not appointed, they are elected by their constituents. And for them to be firmly tied to our Constitution is, if they are our law enforcement arm, then they need to know the laws and what they're grounded in.
Correct. Well, I'm not running for the position. About a year ago, I was appointed by
Oh, okay.
Director Sheriff Richard Mack, who
Mm-hmm.
you've had on, I believe, or should have on
Yes.
if you
He's
haven't.
awesome.
Yes. And Richard Alton, who's the vice president at the national level. This is a national organization, and they can find out exactly what we're about at cspoa.org. And that's our website. Basically, we're an educational arm. My role as a state is I travel the state and I talk to groups, Republican groups on the Constitution. And we work on vetting sheriffs. There's a section on our page that says vet your sheriff, and that's for our local candidates and sheriffs to fill out. We have many constitutional sheriffs in the country that have participated in this questionnaire and are members of CSPOA. You can be a member, $45 a year for an annual membership, and support what we do. What Richard Mack does is he travels the country. He goes to different police agencies. He speaks at different functions for law enforcement, educating them on the Constitution and giving them insight as to how best to, when you take your oath, what does that mean? So we're all about the oath, and we're about the Constitution. We're about making sure our law enforcement, doesn't matter, sheriffs, yes, but it's also peace officers. They all take an oath. And are they going to enforce these unconstitutional orders? And educating them. And what I do is I travel and I talk. I was scheduled to speak at the July 22nd conference for constables. And it was a function they had up there. I was given 2 hours to speak and answer questions after I spoke at the constables conference, but they canceled it because of COVID.
Yeah.
Which raises a red flag, because this whole COVID thing is preventing our groups to get together during elections.
Mm-hmm.
So educating the community, educating the public. I hold Constitution Tuesdays at the Republican office as part of CSPOA to educate our group, get them informed, and getting the public right now is our charge to learn how to interact with their legislators and understand when they're violating the Constitution and how to approach them on that. Getting the public to understand the Constitution as a CSPOA director in Arizona, to when we have these issues, to say, empowering them with knowledge and understanding of the Constitution, that we need to come together, and only together as a group can we push back on these issues. If we don't, then this is going to get worse. And we have to. So as a member of CSPOA for Arizona, that's my charge, is to bring Arizona. Like I said, we're an independent sovereign state, independent sovereign nation. We come together for Arizona's purposes. We come together what's best for Arizona, because what's best for Arizona may not be the same thing for New Mexico, definitely not the same thing for California or New York. So we focus on what is Arizona's culture, what is our needs, what is our purpose, what is our desires. Let's fix that. That's why I'm running as a legislator. That's why I'm working on as a CSPOA director for Arizona, to empower the people with that little document we call.
This little guy?
Exactly. And it's written in simple terms. If you realize there is no there's no term definition in the back. There's no definition of terms in the back to say, well, this is what regulation means. This is what shall not means, because it was they all knew what it meant.
Right.
You don't have to define it.
I mean, President Clinton, when he was in there, he completely confounded the word is. So, remember when he said it depends on what the word is means?
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, our language is even being turned inside out, and there's definitely purpose behind it. And it is so that we all kind of, get confused and throw our hands up and just look for the next leader to tell us what we're supposed to think, what we're supposed to feel, what we're supposed to do. And that is not the DNA that was in the people that, like I said, fought, bled, starved, and died to have the privilege to write our founding documents. And we're trying to do everything we can. I know you're trying to do everything you can to reignite that part of our DNA, that American spirit, that we stop looking for permission to breathe, right? To breathe without a mask on. We are looking for permission instead of just understanding that we are sovereign individuals who are citizens of a sovereign state, who that is part of a sovereign nation. And we do have to run. But Randy, I thank you so much for all that you're doing, all the work that you're putting out there, and for running. That's a rough arena. That is a life-changing chapter that you're stepping into. And I think we need more citizens to take it seriously enough to put their money where their mouth is in the way that you are. But just before we run away, please tell folks, how can they help your campaign? How can they follow you in your teaching endeavors, so we can continuously learn more about our Constitution? And how can they just stay connected with all that you're doing?
Thank you. Well, I do have a website. It's randymiller4, Arizona.com. And I have a blog. I like to write. I write freely on my thoughts. So my blog will give a lot of information about it. They can donate. I could use some more donations for advertising. And I have billboard up on Grand Avenue. I have two. One at 67th and Grand just before Northern, and then one at 111th and Grand at Digital. So I'm trying to advertise as much as I can in that regard. Donations are nice. Constitution Tuesday, like I said, we're having them more frequently because we need to, and my group is growing. They can reach out to me on my website through my email. Email me at randymiller4arizona@gmail.com. And that's Randy Miller number 4 Arizona @gmail.com. And we can communicate that way. And I need people to get involved with the Constitution Tuesday. If they want to walk, if they want to make phone calls for me, that would be grateful. But we need to get patriot, constitutionally minded, firm and strong people in the legislature to push back against this nonsense.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you again so much for all you do. We will definitely have you back on if you'll come. And
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, Randy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Man, that whole militia thing, we could have spent 2 hours just on that, because there's so much misunderstanding and fear around that word. And again, I think that there's a purposefulness behind that, because the powers that be don't want us to understand the power that we have as individuals, as citizens.
And it's the same thing with this Constitution. I mean, it's very simple, very easy to define.
Mm-hmm.
And when a city council or a governor or a president or whoever decides that they don't like the Constitution, they always say, but.
I am for the Second Amendment.
But. I mean, you look at it and say,
wait a minute. That means you're not for the Second Amendment.
I have some people in mind that are on Facebook right now that would argue this whole program that we did today and say, does the Constitution matter if people are dying because they're not wearing masks?
Ooh, you yelled so loud.
That's what they would. That's what they would say.
They would say that you can nullify the Constitution because
for the safety of the public. And you know what? The
But
people can
Dan, it's for the children.
inform
It's
the
for the
people.
children.
Inform the people
Yes.
and let them make a decision.
What? You can do that?
Well,
You
I
can just
don't know.
let people make their own individual decisions?
But it's funny how laws are, I mean, what if a criminal said, yeah, it's against the law to rob a bank, but I need money. So therefore, I'm exempt from the law,
Right.
because I need money. My kids need to eat, right? I can come across the border illegally because I have a baby and that baby needs food. The law is a law. Okay?
Right. And we can feel
And the Constitution is a law.
Right. We can feel
Yes.
compassion. And there are individual private organizations that can help people that are in
Right.
dire situations and all of that. But somehow, when you want the law upheld, as far as the things you're talking about, then somehow we're heartless, right? But when we want the Constitution upheld for
Right.
our legal rights, our legal definition that spells out our God-given right to self-defense, the Second Amendment, then, oh, no, well, that law, we don't need that law. That law was for back then somewhere.
I understand what you're
and for
saying.
muskets.
When I said the border, I got a little insensitive there, but here's the thing you have to think about. So let's say I decide, I got 3 kids, I live in Chicago, and I want to rob a bank because I need to feed my children. I mean, they are starving. It's during the Depression, and they are starving to death.
Right.
Does that make it okay for me to go rob a bank and maybe kill somebody in the process?
Some people
Does
might
it
say
make
yes.
it
I don't
okay?
know, because we're living in crazy world right now.
We are
Everything
living in
is
a crazy
upside
world,
down.
and we need to pray for our world.
Oh, there you go.
No,
We gotta
world,
yeah, we do. You're right.
not the country. Everything.
You're right.
The world. Maybe
You're
even,
right.
maybe even the moon.
You're right. I'm not disagreeing with you, but we do have to run for today.
Yep.
Thank you to our awesome listeners. Thank you to our amazing guest. Thank you, Randy Miller, for coming on. Again, we're in Arizona. Randy's in Arizona. So you would think that the things we're talking about might be just Arizona-centric, but they're not. They really do relate all across the nation. And I love that people are listening all over the world to what's going on here in America, because I think we're inspiring people to, broaden their horizons and think differently, and that, wait a minute, you can live in such a way that you don't have to have some governmental agency's permission to do every single thing. Yeah, you really can. And that's how our nation began. And somehow we just lazily gave and gave and gave away so much. We've abdicated so much of our own responsibilities, and along with it, our freedoms and our liberties. But I think we're about to get some of them back. I think there's more people that are woken up. Not woke.
You woke me up.
I still don't even understand that term. Does that mean you really do get it? Or does that mean, I don't know. It's too political, so I won't use it. But so a lot of people who have come out of their slumber to realize how tyrannical, how overstepping, how meddling in our personal lives our elected officials have become. And so hopefully we'll see that reflected in a positive way at the polls, since it's the year 2020. But we got to go. So until next time, what do we do, Dan?
We pray for this world.
We do. And part of that world is our
royal leaders.
I was just going to say our nation, because we also want to pray for our nation.
Yes, we do want to pray for our nation and our city and our states and our everybody.
And do pray, please, for our elected officials, the ones that are acting like they're royalty, including the ones who are properly behaving like public servants.
Even the one?
Even that one, whatever one comes to your mind, maybe especially that one needs our prayers.
Every day, every time we have a radio show, you tell me to pray for the leaders, and I say I don't want to pray for certain leaders and stuff, but you're inching me up to where I'm about ready to pray for them too. But not today. Not today.
All right. Have a great week. Be good to each other.
Yes.
Have a great week.
Goodbye. Thank you.
And God bless.